The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 23 different species filled the circular hall, their forms ranging from the graceful Zenthari with their silver skin and glowing eyes, to the hulking rock-like Gorvani, who communicated through vibrations in the floor. At the center of it all stood a holographic display showing the latest reports from the Outer Rim. The images were terrifying. Entire star systems had gone dark in the past month. Where once thriving colonies had existed, now only empty space remained. The void wraiths had awakened from whatever dark corner of the universe they had been sleeping in, and they were hungry. Ambassador Tal of the Zenthari stood at the main podium, his psychic voice reaching every mind in the chamber. Fellow council members, we face the greatest threat in galactic history. These void wraiths consume everything in their path. Our individual fleets are no match for them. We must unite our forces. 1. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Kethlari representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal shell, pulsed with approval. The insectoid hive queen clicked her mandibles in the pattern that meant yes in her species language. Even the normally isolated phantom lords had sent a representative. The alliance will combine our greatest strengths, Tal continued. The Zenthari will provide psychic coordination between fleets. The Gorvani bring their planet Kraykacker weapons. The Kethlari offer their energy manipulation technology. Together, we will show these void wraiths that civilized space will not fall without a fight. A new voice cut through the chamber. What about humanity? The question came from Dr. Park So-young, the human representative who stood in a small viewing area reserved for observer species. She was young for a diplomat, barely 30 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Beside her stood Commander Lee Min-jun, a military officer whose calm expression hid years of tactical experience. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives turned to look at the humans, with expressions that ranged from amusement to mild annoyance. Humans were still considered a junior species, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. In galactic terms, that made them infants. Tal's silver skin seemed to shimmer with what might have been irritation. Humanity is welcome to observe these proceedings, of course. Your species has shown remarkable progress for one so young. That's not what I asked, Dr. Park said quietly. I asked what role humanity will play in this alliance. The Zenthari ambassador's psychic presence pressed against the human minds, testing their mental defenses. He found them surprisingly strong for a non-psychic species, but still primitive by galactic standards. Dr. Park, please understand. This alliance requires species with advanced capabilities, energy manipulation, psychic coordination, reality-shaping technology. Humanity simply lacks the necessary tools. Commander Lee Min-jun stepped forward. His voice was steady and professional. Our ships may not use energy weapons, but our kinetic systems are highly effective. Our industrial capacity could support the war effort. Our tactical experience includes conflicts the Council hasn't faced. A sound like grinding stone came from the Gorvani representative. When translated, it meant something close to cute. The Hive Queen's clicking sounded distinctly like laughter. Commander, Tal said, his mental voice taking on a patronizing tone. Your species fights with projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Against enemies that can manipulate matter at the molecular level, such tools are quaint. Your ships lack the psychic networks needed for proper fleet coordination. You cannot even perceive half the spectrums where these battles will be fought. Dr. Park felt her jaw tighten. So, you're saying humanity has nothing to contribute? I'm saying humanity should focus on protecting its own worlds and leave this conflict to species better equipped for it. Tal replied. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when your people have developed proper psychic abilities and energy-based technology, you might be ready to join such efforts. The chamber erupted in what passed for polite agreement among the various species. Psychic whispers, harmonic vibrations, and bioluminescent patterns all conveyed the same message. The Council had more important things to discuss than humanity's hurt feelings. High Counselor Vexmar of the Kethlari pulsed a gentle blue light. Unlike the others, he had studied human history and found it surprisingly violent and creative. "Perhaps we should consider," he began. "The matter is settled," Zixtal interrupted. "We vote now on the formation of the Grand Alliance. All in favor?" 22 lights, sounds, and psychic pulses indicated agreement. Only Vexmar abstained, his crystal form flickering with uncertainty. Dr. Park watched the vote with growing anger. These species talked about civilization and cooperation, but they couldn't see past their own assumptions. They looked at humanity and saw only what they lacked, never considering what they might possess instead. Commander Lee Min-jun placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've heard enough," he said quietly. The human delegation turned to leave, but Zixtal's voice followed them. "Dr. Park, Commander Lee, please don't take this personally. Your species has achieved remarkable things for its age. In time, you may develop the capabilities needed for conflicts like this. Until then, focus on defending your own space. Leave the universe's problems to those of us who can actually solve them." Dr. Park stopped at the chamber's exit. When she turned back, every eye, sensor, and psychic awareness in the room was focused on her. Her voice carried clearly through the vast space. "Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador. You've made your position very clear. Humanity isn't advanced enough, isn't psychic enough, isn't sophisticated enough to help with your war." She paused, letting that sink in. "Fine. We understand perfectly." Repliarded. On some other. Repliarded. Commander Lee Min-jun's expression never changed. But when he spoke, something in his tone made several representatives shift uncomfortably. "Don't worry about humanity, Ambassador Zixtal. We won't bother you again with our primitive offers of help." As they walked toward the exit, Dr. Park's final words echoed through the chamber. "Forget it. We'll do it alone." The human delegation left the council chambers without another word. Behind them, the Grand Alliance began its formal ceremonies, confident in their superior capabilities and united purpose. In the intelligence centers of a dozen species, automated systems flagged the human response as unusual. Most junior species begged for inclusion when rejected by the council. Some threw tantrums or made threats they couldn't back up. None had ever simply walked away with such calm finality. High Counselor Vexmar watched the empty doorway where the humans had stood. In his long experience, the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were often the ones who stopped asking for help and started helping themselves. But the celebration of the new alliance drowned out his concerns. After all, what could one small species do against the void wraiths that 23 advanced civilizations could not? The universe was about to find out. 6 weeks after the council meeting, the human colonies buzzed with activity unlike anything seen since the last World War. Ships moved between planets carrying materials, personnel, and equipment at a pace that strained even humanity's efficient logistics networks. The official name for the operation was Project Independence, but everyone called it something else. Operation Lone Wolf. Dr. Park So-young stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the steady stream of ships moving between Earth and the outer colonies. Each vessel carried components for humanity's response to the Void Wraith threat. No committees had debated these designs. No diplomatic protocols had delayed production. When humanity decided to act alone, they discovered how fast they could actually move. "The shipyards are ahead of schedule," Commander Lee Min-jun reported as he joined her at the viewing window. "Captain Kim Ji-hoon says his people are working 18-hour shifts and loving every minute of it." Dr. Park nodded, but her attention was focused on the datapad in her hands. For weeks, she had been studying every scrap of information about the void wraiths that human sensors could gather. The results were fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Min-Jun, look at this, she said, highlighting a section of her analysis. The Galactic Alliance keeps talking about the Void Wraiths like they're some kind of evil conquerors, but the energy readings don't support that. Lee Min-Jun studied the data. As a military strategist, he was used to reading technical reports, but xenobiology was outside his expertise. Explain it in simple terms. They're not destroying star systems out of malice, Dr. Park said. They're feeding. Every attack follows the same pattern. They target areas with high psychic energy output, colonies with mind-linked populations, fleets using psychic coordination. They drain that energy and move on. So they're predators, not conquerors. Exactly. And that means the Alliance strategy is completely backwards. Dr. Park pulled up another display, showing the planned Alliance fleet formations. Look at this. They're creating the largest concentration of psychic energy in galactic history. To the Void Wraiths, that's not a threat. It's a dinner invitation. Lee Min-Jun was quiet for a long moment. You're saying the Alliance fleets will make the problem worse. I'm saying they'll be consumed first. Dr. Park switched to a new file. But here's the interesting part. Humans don't register on psychic energy scans at all. We're invisible to that kind of detection because we're not psychic, because we're different. The Council sees that as a weakness. But against psychic predators, it's the ultimate advantage. Their conversation was interrupted by Captain Kim Ji-hoon's arrival. The starship captain looked tired but excited, the kind of expression worn by someone who had been solving interesting problems for weeks without sleep. His uniform was rumpled, and his hair needed cutting, but his eyes were bright with accomplishment. Dr. Park, Commander Lee, you need to see what we've built, Kim Ji-hoon said without preamble. The first batch of ships is ready for testing. They followed him to the testing bays, where humanity's new fleet waited. At first glance, the ships looked primitive, compared to the elegant, energy-based designs favored by other species. These were blocky, utilitarian vessels covered in thick armor plating and studded with weapon systems that looked like they belonged in a museum. I know they're not pretty, Kim Ji-hoon admitted, but they're designed for one specific job: killing energy-based life forms that feed on psychic power. Dr. Park examined the weapon systems with growing amazement. These are all kinetic projectiles. Railguns, missile launchers, mass drivers. Every piece of equipment on these ships is purely mechanical or electronic, Kim Ji-hoon explained. No bio-neural networks, no psychic interfaces, no energy weapons that could be drained or turned against us. The Void Wraiths might as well be trying to eat a rock. Commander Lee Min-Jun studied the ship designs with a tactician's eye. What about coordination? How do you link these ships for fleet operations without psychic networks? Kim Ji-hoon grinned. That's the beautiful part. We're using quantum-encrypted communication channels, AI-assisted battle coordination, and real-time data sharing through hardened electronic networks. It's completely invisible to psychic detection, but it gives us better coordination than any mind-link system. Show me, Lee Min-Jun said. The demonstration was impressive. Kim Ji-hoon activated a simulation where 30 ships engaged a mock enemy force. Instead of the elegant, dance-like maneuvers favored by psychic species, the human ships moved like a swarm of angry insects. They shared targeting data instantly, coordinated attacks without visible communication, and adapted to changing conditions with machine-like efficiency. The enemy can't predict our movements because they can't read our minds, Kim Ji-hoon explained. They can't jam our communications because they don't recognize our technology as communication. And they can't drain our weapons because our weapons don't use energy they can absorb. Dr. Park watched the simulation with growing excitement. This could actually work. But we'll need more than just ship design. We need intelligence on Void Wraith behavior, battle plans that account for their feeding patterns, and already working on it, Lee Minjun interrupted. We've been analyzing every Alliance engagement with the Void Wraiths. Their tactical patterns, response times, feeding behaviors. The Alliance shares all their data publicly because they assume no one else is capable of understanding it. And they're wrong. We understand it perfectly. Better than they do, because we're not looking at it through the lens of psychic warfare. Kim Ji-hoon called up another display. We've also been monitoring Alliance communications. Not just the official channels. Everything. Fleet movements, supply lines, strategic debates. They have no idea we're listening because they assume our technology is too primitive for interception. Dr. Park felt a chill run down her spine. You mean we know everything they're planning? Everything, and we know it's going to fail. Lee Min-jun's expression was grim. Their entire strategy is based on overpowering the Void Wraiths with concentrated psychic energy. That's like trying to fight a fire with gasoline. The three humans stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the tools of humanity's independent war effort, ships designed to fight enemies no other species understood. Communication networks invisible to psychic detection. Intelligence gathering that revealed the scope of galactic military failure. The Alliance rejected us because they thought we were too primitive, Dr. Park said quietly. They're about to learn that sometimes primitive is exactly what the situation requires. Kim Ji-hoon nodded. The first ships launch next week. We'll be ready when the Void Wraiths make their next move. And if the Alliance tries to contact us for help? Lee Min-jun asked. They won't, Doctor. Park replied. They're too proud to admit they need help from a species they just dismissed. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late for cooperation. Good, Kim Ji-hoon said with surprising venom. Let them learn what happens when you leave humanity out of the planning. We'll solve this problem our way. Quote. As they watched the ships being loaded with supplies and ammunition, each human felt the same grim satisfaction. The galaxy had made its choice. Humanity would make theirs. The Void Wraiths were about to discover what happened when you threatened a species that had learned to thrive alone. The Kepler 442 system had been a symbol of galactic cooperation. 3 worlds hosted colonies from different Alliance species. Their populations linked through psychic networks that created a harmonious multi-species community. Artists, scientists, and philosophers worked together, using mind-to-mind communication that transcended language barriers. It made them perfect prey. Captain Kim Ji-hoon watched the long-range sensors from his position on the bridge of the human ship, Determination. His fleet hung in the empty space beyond the system's edge, running silent and invisible to both Alliance and Void Wraith detection. They had been tracking the enemy movement for 2 days, waiting for this moment. Sir, the Void Wraiths are dropping out of hyperspace, reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Park Yoon-ji. Energy signatures match predicted patterns. They're focusing on the population centers. Through the view screen, Kim Ji-hoon could see the Void Wraiths emerging into normal space. They weren't ships, in any conventional sense, but beings of dark energy that moved through space like living shadows. Each one was the size of a battleship, their forms shifting and writhing as they sought sources of psychic energy to consume. Alliance fleet status? Kim Ji-hoon asked. 12 ships from 6 different species, all using psychic battle linking, Lieutenant Park reported. They're moving into standard defensive formation. Kim Ji-hoon had studied Alliance tactical doctrine extensively. It was elegant, efficient, and completely wrong for this situation. The psychic coordination that made Alliance fleets so effective against conventional enemies would doom them against predators that fed on mental energy. Sir, Alliance fleet is engaging the enemy, his communications officer reported. On the tactical display, the Alliance ships moved with perfect coordination. Their cruise minds linked across space in a beautiful pattern of shared thought and intention. Energy weapons fired in precisely coordinated volleys. Defensive shields synchronized to create overlapping fields of protection. For exactly 30 seconds, it looked like the Alliance might win. Then the Void Wraiths did what they did best. They fed. Kim Ji-hoon watched in horrified fascination as dark tendrils reached out from the enemy beings, not toward the Alliance ships themselves, but toward the psychic links connecting their crews. Where the tendrils touched the mental networks, they began to drain. "My God," whispered his tactical officer, Commander Yoon Sok-jin. "They're eating the crew's minds." The beautiful coordination of the Alliance fleet collapsed in seconds. Ships drifted helplessly as their crews fell into psychic comas. Weapons fell silent. Shields flickered and died. Within minutes, 12 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had become floating tombs. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said quietly, "the void wraiths are moving toward the colonies. Population centers show approximately 8 million beings across 3 worlds." Kim Ji-hoon felt the weight of decision settle on his shoulders. The human fleet was small. Only 20 ships, compared to the dozens of void wraiths now descending on the helpless worlds. But they were the only force in the system that could still fight. "All ships. This is Captain Kim. Execute Operation Blind Spot. Radio silence from this point forward. Individual ship commanders have tactical autonomy. Remember, we don't exist on their sensors, but only if we don't give them anything psychic to track." 2 people. The human fleet moved into action with mechanical precision. No psychic links connected the ships, but their quantum-encrypted communication networks shared targeting data faster than thought itself. Each captain had spent weeks studying void wraith behavior patterns and knew exactly what to do. The humans attacked from 6 different directions simultaneously, their ships moving like predators stalking prey. Their first weapons were simple kinetic projectiles. Railgun slugs, moving at significant fractions of light speed. To the energy-based void wraiths, the attack came from nowhere. The slugs punched through the void wraiths' forms like bullets through fog, except these bullets were designed to disrupt energy matrix patterns. Where they hit, the aliens' coherent forms began to break apart. "Direct hits on primary targets," Commander Yoon reported. "Enemy formations are breaking apart." The void wraiths tried to respond, sending feeding tendrils toward the human ships to drain their power sources. But human technology was purely mechanical and electronic. There was nothing psychic for the aliens to latch onto. The tendrils passed through the ship's systems without finding anything to consume. Kim Ji-hoon's ship closed with a wounded void wraith, missiles launching from its weapon bays. Each missile was packed with electromagnetic pulse, generators tuned to frequencies that Dr. Park So-young's research had identified as disruptive to void wraith biology. The explosions tore through the alien being like acid through tissue. The void wraith's energy form collapsed, its consciousness scattering into component particles that drifted away into space. "First kill confirmed," Lieutenant Park announced with satisfaction. Across the battle zone, human ships pressed their attack with relentless efficiency. They didn't fight like the elegant Alliance fleets, with their coordinated maneuvers and honorable single combat traditions. They fought like humans had always fought. Like pack hunters, bringing down creatures much larger than themselves. The void wraiths, accustomed to psychic prey that broadcast their intentions, couldn't predict human movements. The aliens tried to adapt, seeking new ways to attack these strange beings that existed in a blank void where psychic awareness was concerned. They failed. "Sir, enemy formations are retreating," Commander Yoon reported. "Remaining void wraiths are withdrawing from the system." Kim Ji-hoon watched the dark shapes disappear into hyperspace, leaving behind only debris and the drifting Alliance ships. His fleet had suffered minimal damage. Some armor scoring, a few sensor arrays damaged by energy discharge, but no serious casualties. "All ships, begin search and rescue operations," he ordered. "Check the Alliance vessels for survivors. Send medical teams to the colonies to assist with psychic trauma recovery." As human ships moved to help the very people whose leaders had dismissed them weeks earlier, Kim Ji-hoon received a priority communication from Admiral Chen Wei-ming, commander of Human Fleet Operations. "Captain Kim, Your battle data is being analyzed by our tactical teams. Initial assessment shows human weapons and tactics are highly effective against Void Wraith forces. Understood, Admiral. What are our orders? Continue independent operations. Monitor Alliance communications, but do not reveal our capabilities or coordinate with their forces. If they want our help, they can ask for it properly. Kim Ji-hoon smiled grimly. And if they don't ask? Then we continue doing what we've always done, Captain. We take care of ourselves and anyone else who needs helping, whether they want our help or not. As the human fleet finished its rescue operations, reports began filtering back to Alliance Command about the mysterious engagement at Kepler 442. Void Wraiths had attacked and easily defeated a superior Alliance fleet, then had been driven off by unknown forces using weapons that shouldn't have been effective against energy-based life forms. The survivors spoke of ships that appeared from nowhere, fought without psychic coordination, and used primitive kinetic weapons with impossible precision. Some claimed the mysterious fleet had helped with rescue operations before disappearing as suddenly as they had arrived. In the council chambers, Ambassador Ziextal read the reports with growing confusion. The weapon signatures were clearly human in origin, but that was impossible. Humans didn't have the technology or tactical knowledge to fight Void Wraiths effectively. High Counselor Vexmar, however, was not surprised at all. He had been studying human military history, and one thing was clear. When humans decided to fight, they found ways to win that nobody expected. The question was whether the Alliance would swallow their pride and ask for help before it was too late. Somehow, Vexmar doubted they would. The war room in the Alliance Command Center buzzed with desperate energy as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Admiral Kethvar of the Zinthari fleet stood before a massive holographic display showing the latest Void Wraith attacks, his silver skin pale with exhaustion and fear. 17 systems lost in the past month, he reported to the assembled Alliance leaders. The enemy appears to be learning from each engagement. They're specifically targeting our psychic coordination networks now, making fleet cooperation nearly impossible. Ambassador Ziextal watched the display with growing horror. Red markers indicated systems that had gone completely dark. Yellow showed worlds under attack. The few green markers representing successful defenses were scattered and isolated. What about the mystery fleet that's been engaging them? Asked General Torv of the Gorvani military. Intelligence reports suggest they've been winning. Unconfirmed, Ziextal replied quickly. Sensor data is inconclusive. Some tactical analysts believe the reports are exaggerated. High Counselor Vexmar pulsed a deep blue light that indicated disagreement. Admiral, show them the Kepler 442 footage again. The display changed to show grainy sensor recordings from the battle 3 weeks earlier. Sleek, angular ships appeared from empty space, engaging the Void Wraiths with weapons that left no energy signature. The aliens recoiled from the attacks as if the projectiles were poisonous. Those are human ships, Vexmar stated flatly. The weapon signatures match their kinetic technology perfectly. Somehow, they've found a way to fight the Void Wraiths effectively. Impossible, Ziextal snapped. Human technology is centuries behind ours. They use primitive projectile weapons and chemical explosives. They have no psychic abilities whatsoever. Which might be exactly why they're winning, Vexmar replied. The room fell silent as that statement sank in. For months, the Alliance had assumed their psychic abilities and energy-based technology gave them an advantage. The possibility that those same capabilities made them vulnerable was too disturbing to accept easily. Admiral Kethvar cleared his throat. Even if the humans have developed some effective tactics, they're still just one species with a small fleet. They can't be everywhere at once. Cross. As if summoned by his words, a new report appeared on the display. The Nexus Prime system, home to the Alliance's largest shipyard, was under attack by a massive Void Wraith force. Preliminary estimates suggested at least 50 enemy beings were moving toward the industrial complex. Alert status red, Admiral Kethvar announced. All available fleets are to converge on Nexus Prime immediately. We cannot lose those shipyards. The Alliance response was swift and massive. Ships from 12 different species entered hyperspace, racing to defend one of their most vital installations. The combined fleet represented the largest concentration of military power in Alliance history. It was also the largest concentration of psychic energy ever assembled in one location. Dr. Park So-young watched the Alliance fleet movements from the bridge of the human research vessel Discovery. Her analysis of void wraith behavior had reached disturbing conclusions, and the current situation was about to prove her theories in the worst possible way. They're walking into a trap, she told Commander Lee Min-jun, who was coordinating human fleet movements from the nearby command ship. The void wraiths aren't trying to destroy the shipyards. They're using them as bait. Explain. Lee Min-jun's voice came through the quantum communication link. Look at the attack pattern, Dr. Park said, highlighting her tactical display. 50 void wraiths attacking Nexus Prime. But they're moving slowly, giving the Alliance time to respond. Meanwhile, smaller groups are positioned along all the hyperspace routes leading to the system. They're herding the Alliance fleets into a kill zone, Lee Min-jun realized. Exactly. The biggest psychic energy concentration in galactic history, all gathered in one place. The void wraiths won't just feed. They'll gorge themselves until they're strong enough to attack the core worlds. The human fleets were already moving, but not toward Nexus Prime. Captain Kim Ji-hoon's ships spread out along the hyperspace routes, preparing to intercept Alliance forces before they could reach the trap. Other human squadrons moved to positions where they could observe and record the coming disaster. All human forces, this is Commander Lee, came the fleet-wide announcement. Operation documentation is now in effect. We need complete records of Alliance tactical failures for future analysis. Render assistance to survivors, but do not reveal our full capabilities. The first Alliance fleets arrived at Nexus Prime 6 hours later. The Zenthari 7th Fleet, pride of the psychic naval forces, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their mind-linked crews coordinated instantly. Weapons charging, and shields at full power. The void wraiths were waiting. Dr. Park watched in horrified fascination as the trap closed. The moment the Zenthari ships established their psychic battle network, dark tendrils reached out from hidden void wraiths positioned throughout the system. The aliens had learned to use the system's asteroid field and debris as cover, hiding until their prey revealed themselves. Zenthari fleet is under attack, reported her sensor operator. Psychic network disruption detected. Ships losing coordination. More Alliance fleets arrived, each one adding their mental energy to the growing feast. The void wraiths seemed to multiply, their forms growing larger and more coherent as they absorbed the psychic power of hundreds of linked minds. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a distress call from Admiral Kethvar. The Alliance fleet is requesting immediate assistance from any ships in the area. Dr. Park looked at the tactical display. 23 Alliance ships drifted helplessly as void wraiths fed on their crews. The shipyards were under direct attack, their automated defenses useless against enemies that could drain power from energy-based systems. Dr. Park. Commander Lee's voice came through the comm. Can we save them? She ran the calculations quickly. Maybe, but it would require revealing our full capabilities. Once the Alliance sees what we can do, they'll know we've been holding back. And if we don't help, the Alliance loses its primary shipyard and most of its experienced fleet commanders. The war becomes unwinnable for them. There was a long pause. Dr. Park knew Lee Min-jun was weighing options that would affect humanity's future relationship with the galaxy. Save the Alliance and reveal human capabilities, or let them fall and face the void wraiths alone. All human fleets, engage the enemy. Lee Min-jun finally ordered. Save who you can, but maintain operational security. No communication with Alliance forces until this is over. Human ships appeared throughout the Nexus Prime system like ghosts materializing from empty space. Their kinetic weapons opened fire immediately, targeting void wraiths that were in the process of feeding. Railgun slugs and missile barrages tore through energy forms that had grown fat and slow on absorbed psychic power. The response was devastating. Void wraiths, that had been nearly invulnerable to energy weapons, found themselves being torn apart by simple projectiles. Their feeding was interrupted, their forms destabilized, their consciousness scattered. Captain Kim Ji-hoon's ship moved through the battle zone like a surgeon's knife, precisely targeting the largest void wraiths, while his fleet provided covering fire. His crew worked with mechanical efficiency, each person focused on their specific task without need for psychic coordination. Target the one feeding on the Zenthari flagship, Kim Ji-hoon ordered. Full missile barrage, electromagnetic pulse warheads. The attack hit the void wraith like a hammer blow. The creature's energy form convulsed and collapsed, releasing the psychic energy it had been draining. On the Zenthari ship, Admiral Kethvar and his crew began to regain consciousness. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The surviving void wraiths had fled into hyperspace, their feeding interrupted and their numbers reduced. The Alliance fleet was saved, though barely. Of the 47 ships that had responded to the distress call, only 19 were still functional. As human ships moved through the system, collecting survivors and providing medical aid, Admiral Kethvar sent a message on all frequencies. Unknown fleet, this is Admiral Kethvar of the Alliance Navy. Identify yourselves and accept our gratitude. Captain Kim Ji-hoon looked at his communications officer. No response. Orders are to maintain silence. The human fleet finished its rescue operations and vanished back into the void, leaving behind only questions and the undeniable evidence that someone was fighting the void wraiths more effectively than the Alliance ever could. In the council chambers, Ambassador Zixixtal stared at the battle reports with a growing sense of unease. The evidence was unmistakable. Human ships, human weapons, human tactics, but the implications were staggering. If humans have this capability, he said to his aide, why haven't they revealed it? Why aren't they asking to join the Alliance? High Counselor Vexmar's answer came through the quantum communication network. Perhaps because they no longer need us. Perhaps we trained them too well to survive on their own. The war was changing. The Alliance was failing. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity was fighting a battle that the galaxy's greatest civilizations couldn't win. The question now was whether pride would prevent the Alliance from asking for help before it was too late. The galactic core had never seen such devastation. Ancient worlds that had stood for millions of years now lay empty. Their populations fled, or worse. The great council chambers that had once echoed with the voices of 23 species now held only 7 representatives, their faces marked by desperation and defeat. Ambassador Zixtal stood before the emergency session, his silver skin now dulled with exhaustion and fear. Around him, the surviving Alliance leaders waited for words that might somehow save their crumbling civilization. The void wraiths have reached the inner systems, he reported, his psychic voice weak and strained. Intelligence suggests they're gathering for a final assault on the core worlds. If they succeed, galactic civilization ends. The numbers were grim. Of the Alliance's original fleet strength, less than 20% remained operational. Most species had recalled their ships to defend their home worlds, abandoning any pretense of coordinated resistance. The great psychic networks that had once linked the galaxy now lay silent, too dangerous to use. High Counselor Vexmar pulsed a pale blue light. What about the human fleet? Our intelligence confirms they've been engaging void wraiths across the galaxy. Unconfirmed rumors and sensor ghosts? Zixtal replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Even if humans have developed some effective tactics, they're still just one species. They can't save the galaxy alone. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the council station. The massive displays showed what every sensor operator had been dreading. A fleet of void wraiths emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. Not the scattered raiders they had faced before, but hundreds of the creatures moving in perfect coordination toward the heart of galactic civilization. "This is it," whispered General Torv of the Gorvani. "The final attack." The void wraith formation was unlike anything previously observed. The creatures had grown massive on their diet of psychic energy. Some, now the size of space stations. They moved through space like a dark tide, consuming everything in their path. At the center of the formation was something that made even hardened military officers step back in horror. A void wraith, larger than a moon, its energy form crackling with stolen power from 1,000 devoured minds. The Nexus, the controlling intelligence that had directed the invasion from the beginning. All remaining Alliance forces converge on the core system. Admiral Kethvar ordered desperately. "Everything we have, every ship that can still fight." The response was pathetic. 17 ships from 6 different species, most damaged from previous engagements, against hundreds of void wraiths, led by a creature that could probably destroy planets. Then the impossible happened. Human ships began appearing throughout the system, not in small squadrons this time, but in full fleet strength. Hundreds of vessels emerged from seemingly empty space, their angular forms surrounding the void wraith formation in a perfect sphere. "My gods," Admiral Kethvar breathed. "Where did they all come from?" Dr. Park So-young stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as Commander Lee Min-jun coordinated the largest human military operation in their species' history. Every ship in the human space navy was here, along with converted civilian vessels armed with kinetic weapons. "All fleet commanders, this is Operation Endgame," Lee Min-jun announced on the command frequency. "Remember your training. The void wraiths are not evil conquerors. They're psychic predators following their nature. Our objective is not destruction, but redirection." The human fleet moved with mechanical precision, their ships closing on the void wraith formation from all directions simultaneously. But instead of opening fire immediately, they began broadcasting on frequencies no other species had thought to try. Dr. Park's research had discovered the truth months ago. The void wraiths were not actually malevolent beings. They were ancient creatures from the void between galaxies, following migration patterns as old as the universe itself. The psychic energy they consumed was necessary for their reproduction cycle. Nexus entity. Dr. Park broadcast on the mathematical frequency she had identified. "This is Dr. Park So-young, of the Human Federation. We wish to communicate." The massive creature at the center of the void wraith formation paused, its energy form rippling with what might have been surprise. For the first time in the invasion, the aliens stopped their advance. "You speak in the old language," came a response that bypassed psychic channels entirely. Transmitted through gravitational wave modulation that human technology could detect and interpret. "We had thought all who knew it were consumed long ago. We learned it specifically to speak with you, Doctor," Park replied. "We know what you are. We know why you're here. The psychic species of this galaxy are not your enemies. They're simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time." The Alliance representatives watched in stunned silence as humans accomplished something that had seemed impossible. They were talking to the void wraiths. Not fighting them, not fleeing from them, but actually communicating. "The feeding grounds you seek lie beyond this galaxy," Dr. Park continued. "In the void between star clusters, there are clouds of pure psychic energy left over from the universe's formation. Enough to feed your species for millennia without harming any living beings." "Show us," the Nexus demanded. Human ships began transmitting navigation data, stellar cartography information gathered through decades of deep space exploration. The coordinates led to regions of space that other species had dismissed as empty, but human sensors had detected something else. Vast clouds of primordial psychic energy. Untapped and waiting. "Why do you help us?" the Nexus asked. "Your species does not register as psychic. We are nothing to you." Captain Kim Ji-hoon's voice joined the communication. Because that's what humans do. We solve problems, even when they're not our problems. Especially when everyone else says they can't be solved. The Void Wraith formation began to shift, the creatures turning away from the populated worlds toward the coordinates humanity had provided. But the Nexus hesitated. The psychic species will hunt us, it said. No, Commander Lee Min-jun interjected. They won't. Human ships will escort your migration fleet until you're clear of galactic space. The Alliance representatives could barely believe what they were hearing. Humanity was not only communicating with their greatest enemy, but offering to protect them during their departure. This is impossible, Zixtal whispered. They're treating the Void Wraiths like refugees. High Counselor Vexmar pulsed with what passed for wonder among his species. Perhaps that's exactly what they are. The Void Wraith migration began immediately. The massive creatures formed a convoy that stretched across light years, moving toward the galactic rim under human escort. Ships that had been terror weapons just hours before now traveled peacefully, their hunger satisfied by the promise of abundant feeding grounds ahead. As the last Void Wraith disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Kethvar sent a message to the human fleet. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Alliance Navy. By what authority did you negotiate on behalf of galactic civilization? Captain Kim Ji-hoon's response became the stuff of legend. By the authority of results, Admiral. We solved your problem. You're welcome. But this was impossible. The Void Wraiths were an existential threat. No one could communicate with them. The war was unwinnable. Only because you approached it wrong. Dr. Park's voice joined the conversation. You saw predators and thought they were conquerors. You tried to fight them with the very energy they needed to survive. You never considered that they might be intelligent beings with needs that could be met without violence. Will you accept our formal apology? Zixtal's voice came through the diplomatic channels, for the first time, carrying genuine humility. The Alliance recognizes that we misjudged humanity's capabilities. We formally request your membership in our alliance. The silence stretched for long moments. When Commander Lee Min-jun finally responded, his words carried the weight of humanity's decision. We appreciate the offer, Ambassador Zixtal, but we've been managing just fine on our own. Contact us when you need something impossible solved. The human fleet began disappearing into hyperspace, their mission completed. They left behind a galaxy saved from destruction, a galactic alliance humbled by its own assumptions, and a clear message about what happened when you underestimated humanity. In the weeks that followed, intelligence reports confirmed that the Void Wraiths had reached the feeding grounds humanity had directed them to. The ancient creatures settled into their new home, their hunger satisfied by energy that belonged to no living being. The war was over. The galaxy was safe, and somewhere in the void between stars, humanity continued doing what they did best, thriving alone, while quietly making sure everyone else survived too. Ambassador Zixtal filed his final report on the incident, with words that would echo through galactic history. Note to future diplomats. When humans say they'll do something alone, believe them. And pray they still consider you worth saving when they're finished. The universe had learned a valuable lesson about a young species that transformed every weakness into a strength, every dismissal into determination, and every impossible problem into an opportunity to prove that sometimes the best way to save everyone is to stop asking for permission and start taking action. When humans proclaimed they would do it alone, chaos wasn't coming to the universe. Chaos was coming for the universe's problems.